Welcome to another edition of our on-air series for Effective Living 2023 on the team 2023 Starter Pack. And this is our second week where we're focusing on emotional and mental health imperatives for the year. My name is Bernard Avle. Thank you so much for joining us on radio and television. This week we'll be focusing on various aspects of emotional and mental health. We've chosen to start today by looking at the emotionally healthy family. Emotionally healthy family. It's really a topic I stole, and I need to be honest. The topic was from a book I was given by my friend Isaac Jangma titled Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And I felt, well, if spirituality can be emotionally healthy, clearly families need to be emotionally healthy as well. And one of the accredited trainers for this in Ghana is the global CEO of the Heart Group, a good friend of mine and of the station. Originally a medical doctor, but now a soul doctor. Dr. Perbi, good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Is that a good description of you?
Well, I say once a doctor, always a doctor. It's just that now I work on the software, not the hardware.
Which is more important. Very interesting. It's great to have you. How are you doing?
Doing well, by God's grace. Yes.
You're into all kinds of things. I know leadership is one of your big areas.
Yes.
John Maxwell leadership. Now you're into emotionally healthy spirituality as well?
Yes. Well, I would say that it's not something different. It's an addition. It's another tool in the toolbox, because increasingly we are realizing that the emotional state of a person ends up determining their success in one way or the other. In fact, Harvard Business Review says that what now a lot of people call emotional intelligence actually determines 80 to 90% of your success.
Wow.
80 to 90% of your success, especially IQ being equal, comparatively. Then what's really going to determine your success is emotional intelligence. So even in the leadership world, there's a whole field now called the psychodynamics of leadership, where because you're realizing people are trained in Harvard, Yale, whatever, and then they do something totally stupid. You're like, where did that come from? So it's become a big deal. So I'm really, really into emotions.
I coined it emotionally healthy families.
Yes.
Families, what do you think? How important is family in this conversation?
Well, you're asking the right guy, because I'm a family fanatic. I have 7 children. It's not an accident.
Yeah.
But yes, family is absolutely essential. I usually say that there are these 6 or 7 C's. I say why family is important. Number one, I know most of Ghana is religious, so from the creator's perspective and the creation's perspective, God first created family, first made man and said it's not good for man to be alone, and so created family. Then from the creator's own perspective, those of us who are Trinitarian believe God is Father, Son, Spirit. That's a family right there. At the center of the universe is a relationship. So family is so important. Then there's what I call the cellular perspective. Just like, everything can be broken down to atoms, everything biological can be broken down to cells. The same way, the whole of society can be broken down into family. That's the unit of society, the unit of. So family is key. Another perspective is what I call the cradle perspective. It's said that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. I mean, if our societies are in a mess, let's check what's happening at the family level. Because literally parents shape the world by how they shape their family. Sometimes I call something the COVID-19 perspective. Because guess what? When all important cells and everything, all important jobs shut down, where did we go?
Back to lockdown.
Home.
Boom. Family.
All of a sudden we realized, all of a sudden WHO was doing these adverts, huge adverts, all they were saying is, stay home, go home,
They probably should have done that many years ago.
So family is absolutely necessary for all these reasons. And we know there are these main centers of influence of society, like the arts and entertainment, business, academia, religion, all of that. But at the end of the day, what affects all of them is family.
Why emotion?
It's a good question. Emotions are incredibly important. Why are they called emotion? They literally move us.
Okay.
They literally move us. We like to think we are rational beings basically, but we're actually emotional beings.
Okay.
If you go out and ask why are you voting for A and not B, you'll be surprised some of the answers you will get.
Oh,
yes.
Remember
the days of General Rawlings?
Tell me.
Hey, remember fine, like what about the policies?
Yeah.
So we emotions move us, literally. The other reason why emotions are so important is without taking care of them and then be part of our total development, we are not full and fulfilled human beings. It's an incredible component of our beings. A lot of times we think about the intellect, we think about the physical, the social, the spiritual, and we leave out the emotional. We are not full without the emotional. The other thing is, even since I mentioned spiritual, people like Scazzero, who you've been reading, say that it's actually impossible to be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature.
That's a big thing to say.
That's a big statement.
It's impossible to be spiritually mature without being emotionally mature.
Yep, and I see it. Even pastors, even big men, something happens, they're like, oh, why is he shouting like this or whatever, And so that's a big deal. Emotions are a big deal. In fact, if you remember the Jewish people and of course Christians as a derivative of that, the most important law is to love the Lord your God with all your heart. That even starts. Before, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength.
And this is the first
commandment. So emotions are incredibly important. And like I mentioned earlier, the whole area of emotional intelligence has become a big thing, since Daniel Goleman made it popular in the 1990s. But IQB equal, what would determine your success is your emotional intelligence.
You've already explained the fact that emotions are part of the toolkit.
Yes.
Because I know you are into leadership development, you are into missions and a lot of things. But how did you get involved in emotional health as an area?
Yes. You can be sure I didn't go looking for it because I always thought emotions are kind of softy.
It's not a hardcore issue.
It's not a hardcore issue. Let's focus on this metric and that vision and this and that.
Yeah.
I was doing a master's in leadership in the US, and one of our required readings was a book by Scazzero, actually, Emotionally Healthy Leader.
All right.
And as I began to look at it and how we are supposed to lead out of the strength of our marriage and how I was like, oh my goodness, this is, whoa. So that's what got my attention, when I realized that, wow. And if I may, I know we are focusing on family, but it takes deeply transformed leaders to deeply transform society.
Okay.
And a lot of times emotions are like what we see is the tip of the iceberg. The behavior of people and even the attitude, but underneath is a whole rock of emotions. So this is how I got into it, because in fact I wouldn't have picked it. Just see emotion on the book cover, but I was required reading.
It was an eye-opener, the emotionally healthy leader.
Oh, absolutely. And a game changer, because it changed the way I continue to do marriage and the way I raise my family. So some of the things I'm going to share here are actually things that we practice as a family as a result of going this route.
Wow, this is incredible. So let's talk about signs of an emotionally healthy family. So let's start from the steady state and then let's go into other things. So I'm sure it's not an exhaustive list, but just give me a few of the. If a family is emotionally healthy, what are some of the things you would notice about them?
Great. If a family is emotionally healthy, one of the key things is that emotions are not ignored, especially emotions of sadness, anger, and fear. These are things that, particularly in Ghanaian society, we kind of, it's like you can't express sadness, or fear, that kind of thing. So, that kind of thing. So, a sign of emotional unhealthiness is ignoring these emotions of sadness and anger and fear. A sign of emotional unhealthiness would be, Scazzero call it, dying to the wrong things. There are things that God has given us to enjoy: family, friends, music, name it. And some people, everything's dead. It's like, it's like, how dare you enjoy life? It's supposed to be serious. You're supposed to be, So living to the right things, not dying to the wrong things. Then denying the past. Is one of the signs of unhealthy families. Denying the past impact of the present. A healthy family is one that realizes that, oh, great-grandfather was a drunk, grandfather was a drunk, father is a drunk. We need to do something about this situation. Or in our family, women beat men. Let me change the narrative a bit. acknowledging the effect of the past on the present. Very, very important, as a sign. And then one sign of emotional unhealthiness is spiritualizing away conflict.
Spiritualizing away conflict.
There's a quarrel for mother, father, or father, son, or whatever. It's like Abunsamo and Abunsam. This one is the devil's. There's a lot we attribute to the devil's side. We actually give him too much credit. I'm not saying he's not alive and doesn't do his things, but I lived in the North America for about 12 years, and I used to say that the devil works. He works in Africa. But he lives in America. we see his signs, right? But they make him so comfortable out in the West that the witches. He can relax there. That's where he lives, but he works there. But honestly, spiritualizing away conflict, and this tends to happen especially with spiritual people. It's like deal with the conflict, deal with what is, and there's a whole thing called false peace. A lot of us settle for a false peace. But let's talk about it. Let's bring it up. So, and then there's covering over brokenness and weakness and failure. And I think it's been made worse by the charismatic movement that does not have a theology for dealing with death, for dealing with grief, or dealing with loss. There's no theology for it. So you have a bishop who can't have children. He doesn't know what to do with it. What's wrong with him? Has he sinned? So these are certain signs of unhealth. Covering over brokenness.
This is Effective Living series. Just to recap, we are talking to Dr. Perbi, and he's on a roll. I hate to come in, but just to let you know, if you just tune in, we're talking about emotionally healthy families. This is day 1 of our week 2, and he's really set us off on a real exciting conversation. Family is critical, both for the creator and the created level, at the cellular level, the cradle level, and also even the COVID dimension. And EQ is now responsible for 80 to 90% of our success. He's also spoken quite eloquently about the role of emotions in success and the fact that an emotionally unhealthy family ignores certain emotions like sadness, anger, fear, and then dies to the wrong things. I like the quote, "How dare you enjoy life?" Emotionally unhealthy families deny the past and its impact on the present. And then they also spiritualize conflict. And then they create a sense of false peace. And then they're covering over their weakness, other things like this. So maybe let's wrap up there, and then we jump into how to deal with some of these things. So I like where you're going with this. And you're talking about the charismatics not even having a theology for grief, and I mean, I'm going through grief.
That's right.
And it's an interesting thing you say, because in my grief, I found a lot of things which the traditional system couldn't give you. All right, even discovering yourself and how you grieve.
That's right.
Because you would not know that there are different ways of grieving.
That's right.
So
That's
very
right.
interesting points you made. I wanted to just elaborate a bit on that, and then we wrap up on the signs of an emotionally unhealthy family. Then we come into how to deal with those.
Okay. Yes, so Scazzera talks about enlarging your soul through grief.
Okay.
And it's actually something borrowed from the church fathers, the early church fathers, the first 400, 500 years of the church. That grief actually has a way of expanding our soul. But a lot of us will not sit long enough in grief because it's anathema. Why should I, life should be upward and upward and upward and upward. And in this country, we've had, cases of very senior ministers, for example, losing children or some other kind of, and people just don't know how to deal with it. Even some of them, you could tell, not sure how to deal with it. So it's something we need to bring back and get a holistic view of scripture and theology, because God himself is a suffering God. You think you know how to suffer. We think we know suffering is.
Take under the hands of his children.
Take a look at God. So it's a dimension I hope we can bring into the discussion going forward. If a child is depressed, let's say clinically depressed, how does a family deal with it? My dad will probably say, to straighten your face. But it's not a face thing. There's something going on. It could be physiological, it could be environmental, it could be whatever. But so we need to.
Luckily, Dr. Delali Fiabe would deal with
Awesome.
mental health tomorrow.
Awesome.
Or on the next program. So that's covered.
Great.
So
And then sometimes there are certain unspoken or sometimes spoken commandments in a family that give us certain emotions or attitudes towards certain things that affect us and we don't even realize it. Typically about money. You know, about conflict, about sex. You know, this family, we don't, you know, we talked about grief and loss, you know, expressing anger, but about money in particular. It's like, you are not a human being until you are rich.
Hey.
Yes. You're a human when you're born, but you become a human being
until you are rich.
When you know, little things like that affect how we relate to things like money. I remember reading a story about a guy who, every time he became a millionaire, he would get back poor. Every time he made a breakthrough. It was later, upon analysis, that it was realized that subconsciously, his mom had brought him up to think that every rich person is a pig. Yes, greedy, you know, all that. So he makes money, and unconsciously, he blows it.
He has the wrong concept
you
about.
Know? So it's absolutely important. These commandments we have in our families about success, relationships,
and it's interesting to say they are unwritten.
A lot
so
of times
they are not necessarily very overt.
That's right.
But it's there.
That's right. That's right. How we feel towards Airways, how we feel towards Asantis. It's all there. You know, and we don't even realize it's happening because it's under the radar. You know. Now there's a guy called Beaver who came up with this schedule. I don't know whether we can go through it. He has this scale of family functioning. Level 5 is the lowest. It's called the family in pain. There's level 4, it's called the borderline family. Level 3 is the rule-bound family. Level 2 is the adequate family. And level 1 is the optimal family.
Wow.
Let me read through some of them.
So family in pain is the lowest.
Is the lowest, level 5.
Borderline is the next. Rule-bound.
So family in pain is a severely disturbed family that's dysfunctional. It's characterized by disorganization, feelings of apprehension among its members, and permeating sense of imminent danger. It's ghost-ridden and marked by losses that go unmourned. The passage of time is routinely denied. It lacks authority and clear leadership. Little in the way of dependable interpersonal connections. And you can it's actually analogous to nations in civil disorder. You know, you can say that there's a family in pain. That's the level 5. Level 4 is the borderline family. This is an improvement of level 5, but you know, it's swung to the polar opposite, where it is adopting a rigid system of rules. So everything is by the book. You know, so disorder has been supplanted by dictatorship. You know, I used to have a bit of that growing up, just a bit of that. You know, when the car goes, pumper, you know, I'm not saying we're level 4.
You're taking this at the old man on national television.
You come at me, you know. Patterns of dominance and submission reign. There's strict surveillance designed to control not only actions but also the thoughts and feelings of everyone in the family. Exactly. I like that. You know, and black and white perceptions. One is intolerant of ambiguity. An individual is either perfect or monstrous, in one or the other. Now, level 3, called the rule-bound family, is also, of course, there are also rules, but this time the members themselves have internalized the rules, all right, and are forcing it on. You know, so it's not one dictator or parent dictator. It's the dictatorship has spread, so to speak. Family participants abide by unquestioned conformity. There are oughts and shoulds, right? The rules of the system take precedence over anyone in it. There's loss of connection with one's own emotional life, which must be repressed for the good of all, and it limits the potential for intimacy. Level 2, the adequate family. This has a lot of characters with the optimal family. It's very egalitarian. People are able to listen attentively and be able to get input from all members. There's true intimate encounters among family members. Rules are clear but not written in stone. They're not, you know, they're flexible. Flexible emotional system, having the capacity for structural growth and change. And then the optimal family, let me end with that, is able to adapt better than all the previous levels when life cycle events come, changes come. The security and trust in the emotional connections. There's a firm belief in the possibility of working out conflicts, or if not, respecting differences. They accept both love and hate within themselves and others in the emotional system. A full range of feelings can be expressed and is even embraced. The individual differences are viewed as enriching. all right, and people experience genuine pleasure in one another's company. So
That's the whole course.
That's the whole course, and I'll
And this is
encourage
by
every one of
Beaver.
us.
Is there a book reference?
I'm sure if you just Google Beaver, you can find it. We use this a lot, in in family medicine, we use these things as well. I encourage people to take a look at these 5 and ask yourself, where is our family at the beginning of 2023, right? And where do we want to be by the end of 2023?
Set me thinking. Family in pain, borderline, rule-bound, adequate, optimal.
This
is still Effective Living series. Dr. Perbi is really taking us on a ride into emotionally healthy families. And as I say for all the topics, this is basically an initial dipstick. It's not exhaustive. We'll probably bring him back in the course of the year to talk again about this, because these are very important topics for the month. So we have 10 minutes to wrap up. What I wanted you to do now was to give me some tools.
That's right.
You've explained the framework. You've given me a system of measurement. So maybe I'm in a dysfunctional family, or I'm a family in pain, or a borderline family. What do I do?
Awesome. Very good. One of the key tools I like to propose to people when it comes to emotional health, 2 main things: the ability to recognize your emotions and the ability to regulate those emotions.
Okay.
Right? Even in emotional intelligence, you're able to do that. I recognize your emotions and managing them, and then recognizing emotions of others and how to manage them. That's basically what it is. So when it comes to recognizing emotions, I would like to propose a simple tool called 5-5. It could be 10-10, it could be 2-2, but I'll explain that 5-5. 5-5 is this. Better than I'm going to illustrate.
5-5.
5-5 means I'm going to take 5 minutes to express how I feel. And then after, you also take 5 minutes to express how you feel. Okay. Sometimes when my wife and I are, in a hurry or whatever it is, we do 2-2. 2-2 also works.
2 minutes each.
2 minutes each. But you can even do 10 minutes each as you grow in this area. Now, to start, for most of us, we don't even have vocabulary for our emotions. And so we start with these 4 basic ones. I'll ask you, how are you feeling? And then you answer, I'm feeling glad, or sad, or mad, or bad.
Okay.
Just those 4. So you pick one.
Glad, sad, mad, or bad?
Yes.
Only one positive.
Right. So when you answer, you say, oh, I'm feeling glad. Then all I say is, tell me more.
Okay. Then you elaborate.
So the person goes on. And the person may stop. Then you all say, repeat, tell me more.
Okay.
Until the 2 minutes or the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes is up. You'll be amazed how many emotions come up and things that person...
Can I use this with my kids?
Oh, yes. Yes, we do it.
Are you feeling glad, sad, mad, or bad?
And you'll be amazed. But I say to, I'm a bit ashamed to say, but I learned these things as an adult. And my children are learning them.
They'll do better.
They will do better. Yeah. They should do better.
They have to.
So you just go, and you don't say anything when somebody says something that makes you want to go on a tangent. No,
so it's not
discipline
judgmental.
yourself.
So just let the person do their 5 minutes, and then do your 5 minutes. And how do you reconcile the two?
Well, I mean, you can, depending on how much time you have, etc., you can sort out. This thing that you said, I don't agree. But at least it allows those 2 minutes, those 5 minutes for people to express themselves. That's the 5-5. Maybe for our viewers, we could. There's a wheel of emotions that I can share, because
we'll put it on the screen.
Great. Yes, right now, when I ask, let's write down all the emotions we felt over the last 24 hours.
Okay, so I'll give you a few.
Yes.
Happy, anxious, disturbed, excited.
Great.
What else?
Have you felt all of these in the last 24 hours?
Not excited, but it's too big an emotion. But I felt a bit anxious. I felt happy. I felt fulfilled.
All right.
And I felt concerned.
Awesome.
All within the same 1 hour.
You are amazing. Yeah? You are in touch. A lot of people cannot come out with more than 4. And sometimes it's because people don't have a language for it.
So in that spectrum, what are some of the words there?
Oh, it's amazing. For example, bad. Remember, we just talked about those 4 basically. But if you look at bad alone, bad, it could be bad in terms of what? Are you tired, stressed, busy, I feel bored, I'm indifferent, apathetic, pressured, rushed,
all under bad.
All under bad, out of control, sleepy,
All under bad.
all under just bad.
And under sad, you have what? Plenty.
You have even more.
Wow.
Under sad, you can have others like lonely, because you said sad, but what kind of sad?
Okay.
Is it lonely? Is it vulnerable?
Okay.
Is it despair? Is it guilty? Is it depressed?
Wow.
Is it hurt? Is it embarrassed?
My
Is it
God.
disappointed? Is it feeling inferior? Feeling empty? Feeling remorseful?
I know the funny
ashamed?
thing, if we even push this further to our local language, we don't even have, like, Tree, do you even have the words for some of these emotions?
It will be very interesting to
because
find
that
out.
then tells you that, because the way the emotion is even described in an English way,
Yes.
may not be how it's been expressed in a
That's
traditional.
right.
So
That's right. That would be interesting to. That's a great assignment
if
to
Professor
look at.
Ketia were alive, he probably have helped us to do that. So in conclusion, yes, we'll do this exercise, the 5-5,
Yes.
the wheel of emotion.
Yeah.
What's your final takeaway for families in trying to set up a framework for emotional health in 2023?
I will strongly encourage family times. I realize a lot of families don't have a family time. At least once a week, let there be a family time where you sit, you discuss, what are you thankful for, and that's another tool you can look at. You ask, what do you appreciate? And people say, I appreciate this, I appreciate that. Even our 2-year-old is able to say, I appreciate daddy, to be able to say that. Then next thing is, what are you puzzled by? And then ask, I'm puzzled that you took my toy and gave it out without telling me.
Wow.
The little children are able to express these things. The next thing is, what do you notice and prefer? This is basically complaining, but you don't put it in a whiny
What do you
way.
notice and prefer?
Yes, I noticed that these days daddy wakes me up at 5:50 instead of 6, and I prefer that he waits till the alarm goes at 6. What do you notice and prefer? And then my new information is, oh, grandma is coming to visit tomorrow. Because sometimes even couples don't share new information with each other. Say, oh, is it today that your uncle said he'll come? that kind of thing. And finally, I hope, expressing hope is one of the most powerful things you can ever relate to somebody about. I hope this week, I'll get an A in my exam. Oh, I hope that, the prices the dollar will come down or whatever.
I really hope that.
But I hope these are some handles.
I'll bring you back. I need to bring you back.
Yes.
This is too much. Forgive me, because we've sort of committed ourselves to 30 minutes, and we have to be committed to the 30 minutes. It's also part of growth, discipline.
That's right.
But Dr. Perbi, so long as it's available, we'll come back on air to delve deeper into this. And if you have time to get this book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, Emotionally Healthy Leader, I'm sure there are dimensions of emotional health that this gentleman has explored. Thank you for watching another edition of the Effective Living series. My name is Bernard Avile. We'll be with you next time. Bye-bye.